I can't deny it. I love these archival images of Dr Michele Ferrari training near his mansion in Ferrara with Lance Armstrong's US postal kit on. Don't be mistaken by his stuffed, tight jersey-clad Fleche. The man is a sports medicine genius. Possibly the man with the most total wins in the history of the Tour de France. Today we will hear about 7 of these incredible performances of different cyclists given birth to by Ferrari. Do you want to know more about them? Well, without further ado, let the show begin. Number 7. Axel Merckx and his top 10 in the Tour de France. Olympic bronze medalist and a stage winner in the Giro d'Italia. We certainly can't say that the son of the legendary Eddie Merckx was a real disaster. Unlike some other cycling family members like Prudencio Indurain or Dare Quintana. However, since his early days with Lance Armstrong's Motorola, he immediately began to fly in the first years of his career. It was in fact his own dad Eddie who introduced good old Axel and his Motorola teammates, including Lance, to Dr Ferrari. He managed to get a guy taller and heavier than even Miguel Indurain to climb well in the mountains, and achieved an historic milestone, a top 10 in the 1998 Tour of Shame. A tour in which he didn't even appear amongst the first in the Pyrenees, but in the Alps he managed 2 top 10 stage finishes, and an impressive, for him, 9th place in the final time trial, which put him into 10th place in the GC, ahead of true doping monsters like Bjarne Riis, Leonardo Piepoli and Kevin Livingston. It's as if Ferrari took Antonio Nibali and got him a top 10 in the Tour de France. Number 6. George Hincapie, the legendary climber. Lance Armstrong's best friend also evidently benefited from Dr Ferrari's treatments. Although his stature and weight were those of a sprinter first and a classics rider second, by the 2005 season he had become the total cyclist, able to ride like the best as he had always done, but also to be Lance's best supporter in the mountains. Armstrong must have thought that at least Hincapie wouldn't betray him like Tyler Hamilton or Roberto Eras, so why not make fly a guy weighing 83 kilos through the Alps? The result was spectacular. With a brilliant stage win, bought from Phonax Oscar Pereiro and the Plat after a spectacular breakaway through the Pyrenees. Not content with that, George flew through the individual time trials to finish an impressive 14th in that Tour de France at the age of 32. Now, if that's not magic, what more does Ferrari have to do to prove that he's the best? Number 5. Ferrari's debut in top competition. Francesco Moser was one of the best cyclists of the late 70s and early 80s. A spectacular sprinter with great abilities on short climbs and sharp efforts, as evidenced by his 3 Paris-Roubaix, 2 Giro de Lombardias and the World Road Cycling Championships, amongst other great successes. However, in 1984, while riding for Gil Gelati, he literally destroyed all odds at the tender age of 33. An age that in the mid-80s was practically retirement level when talking about professional cycling. A young Ferrari, 2 years younger than Moser, managed to make the Italian riders sweep the Italian calendar, winning the Milano-San Remo and the Giro d'Italia, the dream that he had never been able to achieve in his life, where he won as many as 4 stage victories. Perhaps his best known success is in the hour record, broken at altitude in Mexico, where Moser beat a legendary record of Eddie Merckx that dated back to 1972. And not just in any old way, since Francesco beat the Belgian's record by almost 1.5 kilometers. Ferrari had resurrected a dead man who was no longer ready for great successes and brought him back to life and to fame. And that achievement was the one that opened the doors to all the others. Number 4. Breaking the rainbow curse. Usually the stress of wearing the world champion's rainbow jersey causes lots of riders to pay for the effort and to have a disappointing campaign that season. And this is commonly referred to as the rainbow curse. For the 1996 campaign, Ferrari would personally train the Spaniard Abraham Olano, heroic world champion in Duitama the previous year. A great time trialist and a poor climber, La Oreja Olano reached all-time highs in the mountains, winning the Tour of Romandy, and completing an impressive Giro and Tour de France in the Mappai ranks. In Italy he fell just short of victory after losing the Maglia Rosa on the last day in the mountains, where he still finished in the top 5 behind the Russian Pavel Tonkov. In France he was second behind Bjarne Riis until the Pamplona stage, when the Mappai skipper Giorgio Squincy forced him and his teammate Rominger to burn in a failed attempt to storm the Tour de France, although he finally finished a worthy 9th place. All these brilliant performances made him number 2 in the UCI rankings that season, and led him to sign a spectacular contract with the Banesto team for 1997. He left Ferrari and never returned to the level exhibited in that epic 96 season. Number 3. Beating Indurain twice in the same year. Miguel Indurain was practically God in the early 90s, seemingly unbeatable due to his superiority against the clock and his Conconi Padilla preparation. Beating him was an obsession for Dr Ferrari, and in 1994 he was able to do it, twice. The first in the Giro d'Italia, where he managed to get Yevgeny Berzin, his favourite child in the ranks of the Gewiss Wallonne team, for whom he officially worked, to absolutely crush Indurain in the time trials, and to win the Maglia Rosa by a landslide. The second one was on the track, where with a stealth preparation, together with the veteran and loyal client Tony Rominger, he managed to make the Swiss man clearly beat Miguel Indurain in his attempt to beat the world hour record. And so you see, close to Big Mig's peak, Michele Ferrari was able to crush him in 2 of the Spaniard's major season goals. Arguably his 2 most bitter defeats in his 5-year winning streak between 1991 and 1995. Number 2. Don't worry Lance, it's all under control. Since 1999, Michele Ferrari became Armstrong's exclusive US postal doctor, in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This allowed Armstrong to get a direct connection with the doctor from Ferrara, and even in the cycling competitions themselves. The Saisses episode of the 2000 Tour de France will long live in the memory. Marco Pantani had been a headache for the gringo. For a robotic and ordered mind like his, a real pyromaniac like the pirate of Mercatone Uno was something that he had trouble understanding. To such an extent that he knocked him out in the Courchevel stage, as we had never seen Armstrong before or since. Pantani was not the best Pantani. He was already a complete cokehead by then. However, he decided to attack on the last mountainous day, with more than 150 kilometers to go on the Col de Saisses with several Spanish riders. This attack alarmed Armstrong so much that even though he was 6 minutes ahead of Pantani, he feared that the Italian would have a repeat of his glorious day on the Galibier 2 years earlier. Lance went back to Johan Brunel's car and called Ferrari directly, and only the good doctor could calm and reassure him. He literally told him, "Relax Lance, everything is under control. Pantani won't last the whole stage at that pace. It's humanly impossible." After several kilometers in a lone breakaway, the pirate abandoned, exhausted. That's the difference of having the best doctor in the world on your side, even if they are all doping. Number 1. EPO is as dangerous as orange juice. We won't go into too much detail on this one, because everyone knows the story. Fleche Wallonne, 1994. 3 riders from Dr Ferrari's Gewiss Wallonne team who had been sweeping through the season. Giorgio Furlan, Yevgeny Berzin and Moreno Argentine break away alone on the wall of Wii. And after almost 40 kilometers in a TT-like breakaway through the plains and the hills of the Ardennes, end up winning in a crushing manner over the rest of the peloton. Word has it that the laughter was heard as far away as New Zealand when the 3 men in blue stood on the podium. But even more so when Michele Ferrari at the press conference afterwards practically assured us that he had doped his riders with EPO, comparing it to orange juice. And according to the doctor, well, it all depends. If you take a lot of EPO, of course it's dangerous, just like if you take a lot of juice. What's clear is that in reality, the Gewiss guys did ride juiced, very juiced.